Chosen one, something is being revealed right now, and you will not be able to hide it any longer. The real power God placed inside you, suppressed, minimized, and attacked for too long, is rising to the surface, and nothing that tried to keep it hidden can hold it back anymore. Stay with these words, because what you are about to hear may be the moment you finally stop hiding what God spent too long building inside you. Type Amen in the comments if you believe God is about to reveal something powerful that has been hidden inside you. You did not land on this video by accident, and what I am about to share is going to show you exactly why. At 6 in the morning, before one of the biggest moments of my life, I stood in front of a mirror hearing every reason I wasn't enough, until I made a decision I had never made before. I looked at my own reflection and said out loud, "There is something inside me that hasn't appeared yet, and today it will." What happened after that day changed the trajectory of everything that followed. Drop a like right now. This simple action helps carry this message to another chosen one who needs to hear it today. There is a fundamental difference between potential that has been destroyed and potential that has been suppressed, and the chosen one who has spent years believing that what was minimized in them has been permanently lost needs to hear this distinction clearly and receive it completely. Destroyed means gone, eliminated, erased, rendered permanently unavailable regardless of what happens next. Suppressed means compressed, pushed down, held back, contained under pressure that has been building rather than dissipating, accumulating force rather than losing it, growing in intensity rather than diminishing. And the critical thing about compressed potential is what physics teaches us about compression. The greater the pressure applied and the longer it is sustained, the more explosive the release when the containment finally gives way. What was pushed down inside you did not disappear during the years it was not visible. It was being pressurized. The silence around it was not the silence of absence. It was the silence of something gathering itself, building the internal force that will characterize its emergence when the moment of revelation finally arrives. The chosen one who understands this stops grieving the years of suppression as wasted time and starts recognizing them as the compression phase of something that is about to emerge with a force that the undisturbed version of the same potential could never have generated on its own. I grew up in an environment where some of my most defining characteristics were consistently framed as problems rather than as potential. I talked too much, thought too quickly, questioned too persistently, saw connections between things that the people around me did not see and could not always follow. The consistent message I received about these qualities, not always explicit, sometimes just atmospheric, was that they were excessive, disruptive, and in need of correction. Had I spent years trying to correct them, trying to be less of what I naturally was, trying to fit into a shape that the environment around me seemed to prefer over the shape I actually was? What I could not see from inside that process was what became increasingly clear as I moved further away from it. Every quality that was called a problem was the raw material of a specific capacity that God had placed in me for a specific purpose. The talkativeness was the foundation of communication that could reach people. The rapid thinking was the foundation of pattern recognition that could solve problems others missed. The persistent questioning was the foundation of a discernment that could see beneath surfaces that others accepted at face value. The chosen one who has been told that their most natural qualities are their greatest liabilities has almost certainly been lied to, and the lie was designed specifically to keep them from developing into what those qualities were always meant to become. The power that God placed inside you was hidden, not as punishment but as protection, and understanding the difference between those two things is one of the most liberating reframes available to the chosen one who has been carrying resentment about the years their potential spent underground. Punishment is arbitrary. It is imposed because someone decided you deserve to suffer, and it has no productive purpose beyond the suffering itself. Protection is intentional. It is applied because something valuable needs specific conditions to develop properly before it is exposed to the full pressure of the environment it was designed to operate in. A seed does not experience the darkness of the soil as punishment. The darkness is the environment in which the specific processes that make growth possible can occur without interference. Light before the root system is established does not accelerate growth. It destroys what was in the process of becoming. The chosen one, whose power has been hidden in the darkness of years that felt like delay, rejection, and obscurity, has been in the soil, not buried but planted. And planted things do not stay underground forever. They emerge when the root system is deep enough to support what the surface is about to require of them. So here is the question I want you to sit with honestly, the one that has the potential to completely reframe your relationship with the qualities in you that have been most consistently called deficits, problems, or excesses. What in you was called too much, too intense, too sensitive, too ambitious, too different, too persistent, too loud, too quiet, too something, that now, with the distance of time and the clarity of honest reflection, you can begin to recognize as the specific signature of a capacity that was never meant to be corrected, but developed. Because the qualities that attracted the most criticism, the most attempts at correction, the most pressure to conform to something smaller and more manageable, those are almost always the territories where the most significant potential is located. The world does not spend energy trying to suppress what is ordinary. It suppresses what is threatening to the status quo. And the chosen one, whose most natural qualities have attracted the most suppression, has been carrying something that was always worth the fight to contain, which means it was always worth the faith to release. Type 777. If you believe what was called a weakness in your life is actually the power God placed inside you. Power revealed before its time is power wasted, and this is not a principle that God applies arbitrarily or without profound compassion for the chosen one, who has been waiting longer than they feel they can sustain. It is a principle rooted in the understanding that what is revealed must be received, and receiving something significant requires the development of a capacity in the person that the thing itself cannot produce. A fruit harvested before it has ripened does not simply taste different. It lacks the nutritional substance, the internal structure, and the full expression of everything it was designed to be, because the process of becoming was interrupted before it reached completion. The chosen one, who was exposed to the full weight of their calling before the character required to carry it had been developed, would not have been accelerated by that early exposure. They would have been overwhelmed by it, would have mismanaged it, would have found that the thing they had prayed to receive became a burden rather than a gift, because the infrastructure needed to steward it well simply was not yet in place. God's protection of the timing of your revelation is not indifference to your desire for it. It is the specific, targeted love of someone who understands that what is coming requires a version of you that the waiting season is still in the process of producing, and who refuses to release what he has prepared before the person who will receive it is genuinely ready to carry it without being destroyed by it. I spent a significant and genuinely painful stretch of my life desperate for my potential to be recognized, not out of vanity, but out of the specific frustration of someone who can feel what they carry and cannot understand why the world around them seems unable to see it. I could sense what was inside me. I could feel the weight of it, the specificity of it, the way it pressed against the constraints of the spaces I was occupying, as if it were too large for them. And I interpreted the gap between what I could feel internally and what was being acknowledged externally as a failure of recognition, as the world's inability or unwillingness to see what was genuinely there. What I could not see from inside that frustration was what became completely clear in hindsight. The timing of the recognition was not arbitrary, and the delay was not evidence that what I carried was less significant than I believed. It was evidence that what I carried was more significant than I was yet equipped to handle. The character I developed during the years of obscurity, the patience, the groundedness, the ability to function faithfully without external validation, the specific kind of faith that does not require an audience to remain consistent, was not the consolation prize for missing the early recognition I wanted. It was the essential preparation for the kind of impact that the recognition, when it finally came, would require me to be able to sustain. The period in which your power stayed hidden was not a period of inactivity, and treating it as wasted time is one of the most significant misinterpretations a chosen one can make about their own story. While the gift was hidden, something else was being built, something that the gift itself could not produce, and that no amount of early recognition could have developed as effectively as the specific conditions of the hidden season. Character was being formed, the specific interior architecture of integrity, patience, humility, and genuine faith that will be required to carry what is coming without being distorted by it. Capacity was being developed, the ability to hold complexity, to navigate difficulty, to continue advancing without the fuel of external validation that the hidden season systematically withheld, precisely because the ability to function without it was one of the most essential things the next season would require. And wisdom was being deposited through every experience of rejection, every season of obscurity, every moment of continuing faithfully without recognition, a quality of understanding about people, about purpose, and about how God moves was being accumulated that could not have been produced any other way. The chosen one who reviews their hidden season through this lens will find that what they experienced as deprivation was actually one of the most intensive and most targeted formation processes available, one that produced exactly what the revelation season is going to require them to bring to it. What you developed during the period when nobody was watching is the most important thing you are bringing into the season when everyone will be. Not your talent. Talent is what was always there, what was being hidden, what is now emerging. What the hidden season produced is something different and something rarer, the character infrastructure that will allow the talent to be expressed sustainably, responsibly, and in a way that produces genuine and lasting impact rather than a brief, impressive, ultimately unsustainable flash of recognition. The chosen one who arrives at their moment of revelation, having been formed by the hidden season, rather than simply having survived it, will find that they are able to carry what they receive without being overwhelmed by it, to use what they are given without being corrupted by it, and to remain genuinely themselves in the midst of recognition that has the power to distort a person who was not sufficiently rooted before it arrived. The hidden season was not the delay before your story began. It was the formation of the person who is now ready to live it at the level it was always designed to be lived. Not everything that tried to keep you small was accidental, and the chosen one who has been carrying the weight of specific rejections, specific voices, specific closed doors without understanding their function in the larger story of their life needs to hear this with both honesty and compassion. Some of what was designed to silence you was not random opposition from an indifferent world. It was targeted resistance from forces that understood, better than you did at the time, what you would become if the suppression failed. Voices that consistently spoke to your limitations rather than your potential. Environments that consistently rewarded conformity and penalized the specific qualities that made you most distinctively yourself. Relationships that consistently required you to be less in order for the other person to feel comfortable, that made your expansion feel like a threat rather than a celebration. Doors that closed in moments when everything you could see suggested they should have opened, that sent you away from opportunities that seemed clearly aligned with your calling, without explanation or apparent logic. None of these experiences felt like protection in the moment. They felt like rejection, like limitation, like evidence for the case that your most critical internal voices had already been building against you. But beneath the surface of each of them, something was happening that the experience itself could not make visible. The resistance was confirming the value of what it was trying to contain, and the targeting was revealing the significance of what was being targeted. The most painful rejections of my life came not from strangers or from people whose opinions I had not invested in. They came from the sources I most respected, the rooms I most wanted to be in, the people whose recognition I had assigned the most authority to define whether what I carried was real or imagined. And for a period that was longer than I am comfortable admitting, I allowed those rejections to function as verdicts, as authoritative assessments from qualified judges about the actual value of what I was bringing. I built cases from them. I constructed narratives that explained my limitations using those rejections as evidence. I gave people who had never been qualified to evaluate what God placed inside me the authority to determine whether it was worth developing, worth pursuing, worth believing in. What I could not see from inside that process was the fundamental error at its foundation. The sources of the most painful rejections were not rejecting me because what I carried had no value. They were rejecting me because what I carried did not fit what they needed, what they were building, or what they were comfortable accommodating. Rejection from the wrong room is not evidence of disqualification. It is evidence of misalignment, and misalignment with the wrong room is frequently the most direct route to the right one. Here is the truth about the voices, the environments and the forces that try to keep you hidden, that changes everything about how you carry their memory going forward. They did not have the power to destroy what God placed inside you. They had only the power to delay the revelation of it, and not even that ultimately when God's timing for the revelation arrives. What was called a defect could not be eliminated by being named a defect. What was called excessive could not be reduced to nothing by being consistently penalized. What was called unrealistic could not be made impossible by being repeatedly dismissed by people who were operating from a framework too small to contain what God had actually placed inside you. The chosen one who genuinely receives this truth will find that it does something very specific to the authority they have been granting to the voices of the past. It revokes it, not through bitterness or through the kind of proving them wrong energy that is still fundamentally organized around the opinions of people who should never have been given that authority in the first place, but through the quiet, settled, genuinely free recognition that those voices were never qualified to render the verdict they delivered, and that the sentence they pronounced has no legal standing in the court that actually determines the truth about who you are and what you carry. So here is the most important thing I can ask you to do with this understanding, and I want you to take it seriously, as a concrete act, rather than as a conceptual agreement with a principle that sounds right but doesn't change anything at the operational level of your daily life. Identify the specific voices that you are still allowing to define the ceiling of your potential, the ones whose assessments of your limitations you have internalized so thoroughly that you now enforce their verdicts on yourself without needing them present to deliver it. Name them, not to assign blame, not to construct a grievance, but to identify specifically whose authority you need to revoke in order to be fully available for what God is now revealing in you. Because the revelation that is coming requires a version of you that is not simultaneously being held back by the verdicts of people who were never qualified to issue them. The chosen one who completes this work, who genuinely, specifically, and completely revokes the authority of the wrong voices over their identity and their potential, will find that what emerges in the space that authority was occupying is something they have been carrying all along, waiting for exactly this kind of room to finally show itself fully. If you have allowed the wrong voices to define your potential, type, "I take my power back" down below. When what has been hidden finally emerges, the effect is not gradual, and it is not proportional to what was visible before the revelation. It is transformative, sudden, and disproportionately larger than anything the pre-revelation season suggested was possible. This disproportionality is not accidental. It is the direct result of the compression that happened during the hidden season, the accumulated force of potential that was building pressure while being contained, now releasing into the open with an energy that surprises even the person who was carrying it. The chosen one who steps into the full expression of what God placed inside them does not simply become a slightly better version of their previous self. They become a qualitatively different presence in every room they enter, not because they changed who they fundamentally are, but because they stopped filtering, limiting, and apologizing for what they fundamentally are, and the unfiltered version carries a weight and a clarity that the managed version could never produce. The rooms that felt too large before the revelation begin to feel appropriately sized. The opportunities that felt beyond reach begin to feel like natural territory. The conversations that felt intimidating begin to feel like the specific exchanges that the gift was designed for. Everything that the hidden season made feel like an aspiration begins to feel like an assignment, because the revelation does not just change what you do, it changes your relationship with what you were always carrying, and that changed relationship changes everything about how you move through the world. The day I stopped apologizing for what was inside me and started operating it with genuine intention was one of the most significant days of my life, not because of what happened externally in that specific moment, but because of the internal shift it initiated that then produced external effects I had not anticipated and could not have engineered through strategic effort alone. The change was not in what I was doing. The change was in whether I was doing it while simultaneously holding back the part of me that I had been trained to believe was too much for whatever room I was in. When I stopped holding back, what reached people was different. Not louder, not more aggressive, not more impressive in a performative sense, more real. And real reaches places that performed never can, because people do not connect with the managed version of another person. They connect with the genuine one. The chosen one who releases the full version of what God placed inside them will find that the impact they produce is not simply larger than before. It is different in nature, touching people at a level of depth that the contained version of the same gift was never capable of accessing. Because depth requires authenticity, and authenticity requires the willingness to stop hiding what is genuinely there. The revelation of your power will not only change your life, it will create a ripple effect that extends far beyond the boundaries of your own story into the lives of people you have not yet met. situations you have not yet encountered, and territories you have not yet entered. This is one of the most important things to understand about the nature of genuine God-given power. It was never designed to be contained within the life of the person who carries it. It was designed to flow through that person into the world around them, reaching and touching and transforming what it contacts in ways that the person carrying it frequently cannot fully track or measure. The specific gift that God placed inside the chosen one is not a personal possession to be enjoyed privately. It is a tool that was shaped for a specific kind of work in the world, and keeping it hidden does not just limit the chosen one who carries it. It withholds from the world the specific thing that the world was designed to receive through them. People who are waiting for what you carry. Situations that are unresolved because the specific capacity you have been hiding is exactly what would unlock them. Lives that are stuck at a specific point because the word, the presence, the gift, the perspective that only you carry, in the specific form that you carry, it has not yet been released into their experience. So prepare yourself for what the revelation produces, because the chosen one who is not prepared for the scope of what emerges when hidden power is released will be caught off guard by it in ways that are not always comfortable. Prepare yourself for the experience of impact that exceeds what you calculated was possible, for the response of people to what you release being larger, more immediate, and more profound than the contained version of yourself ever produced. Prepare yourself for the doors that open in response to the revealed version of you that were completely unavailable to the hidden version, not because the opportunities changed, but because the person presenting themselves to those opportunities changed in a way that changes what those opportunities recognize as belonging in them. Prepare yourself for the internal experience of operating from full capacity rather than managed capacity, the specific quality of energy, clarity, and alignment that characterizes someone who is no longer spending significant resources on hiding what they carry and can therefore direct all of that energy toward expressing it. The chosen one who steps into revelation is not beginning a journey. They are arriving at a destination that was always the intended endpoint of every season of formation, compression, and patient development that preceded this moment. Revelation rarely arrives all at once, and the chosen one who is waiting for a dramatic, unmistakable, impossible-to-miss moment of sudden emergence may already be in the middle of the revelation without recognizing it because they are looking for something louder than what is actually happening. It begins with signals, subtle, internal, easy to dismiss as ordinary restlessness or vague dissatisfaction if you do not have the framework to read them accurately. The first signal is a growing discomfort with the size of the space you are currently occupying. Not the anxiety of someone who is overwhelmed by their circumstances, but the specific discomfort of something that has outgrown its container and is pressing against the walls from the inside. The second signal is a persistent, specific dissatisfaction with the gap between what you are expressing and what you can feel is available to be expressed. The sense that what the world is seeing of you is a fraction of what exists, and that the fraction is becoming increasingly insufficient to represent the whole. The third signal is a desire for more that does not feel like greed or ambition in the ordinary sense. It feels like calling, like the specific pull of something that was designed for a larger field of operation, becoming increasingly resistant to the smaller one it has been confined to. And the fourth signal is a recurring sense that something inside you is about to not fit anymore in the places you have been trying to contain it, that the season of managed, careful, deliberately limited expression is reaching its natural end, and that what comes next will require a fundamentally different relationship with what you carry than the one that has characterized the hidden season. Before every significant moment of revelation in my own life, I experienced the same internal pattern. A pattern I did not know how to read the first time I encountered it, interpreted incorrectly as anxiety or instability the second time, and finally recognized accurately the third time as the specific signature of something that was about to emerge. The restlessness was the first indicator, a quality of inner movement that was not the frantic energy of fear, but the purposeful stirring of something that was preparing to surface. The tightness was the second, the sense of being pressed, of something inside me pushing against the boundaries of where I had agreed to stay, of the container becoming noticeably inadequate for what it was holding. And the clarity was the third, a growing, specific, increasingly undeniable sense of what was being called out, what direction the emergence was pointing toward, what the next expression of what I carried was going to look like even before I had taken a single visible step toward it. The chosen one who learns to recognize this pattern, who develops the sensitivity to read these internal signals as the early indicators of revelation, rather than as symptoms of something that needs to be managed or suppressed, will never again be caught entirely off guard by the emergence of what God is revealing, because they will have seen it coming in the signals that preceded it. Here is what I want you to understand about the signals of emerging revelation and why paying attention to them matters practically rather than just spiritually. The signals are not just informational, they are invitational. They are not simply telling you that something is about to happen. They are inviting you to begin the process of alignment with what is coming before it fully arrives, to start releasing the postures, the habits, the self-definitions, and the internal narratives that belong to the hidden season and that will not serve the revelation season well if they are carried forward unchanged. The discomfort of the container becoming too small is the invitation to stop reinforcing the container. The dissatisfaction with the gap between what you are expressing and what you carry is the invitation to begin closing that gap through the small, daily, incremental choices to be slightly more of what you actually are rather than the managed version. The sense that something inside you is pressing to come out is the invitation to stop pressing it back in, to begin in whatever small way is currently available, to give it legitimate expression rather than continuing to deny it the outlet that it is increasingly insisting on finding. The chosen one who responds to these signals with alignment rather than suppression will find that the revelation, when it arrives fully, is not a shock but a culmination, the natural completion of a process they have already been participating in by honoring the signals that preceded it. So here is the honest inventory I'm asking you to take right now, with the kind of genuine attention that produces real clarity rather than the superficial self-awareness that confirms what you already believed and leaves everything unchanged. What in you is currently pressing to come out? What gift, what expression, what version of yourself has been asking for legitimate space with an increasing insistence that you have been meeting with an increasingly effortful suppression? What area of your life currently feels too small, not in a circumstantial sense, but in the deeper sense of a calling that has outgrown the container you agreed to keep it in? What desire keeps returning despite your attempts to be reasonable about it? To talk yourself out of it, to accept the current level of expression as sufficient when something in you consistently refuses to accept it as such. These are not random questions. They are the map of where the revelation is beginning in your specific life. The specific territories where what God placed inside you is making itself known through the pressure of its own readiness to emerge. The chosen one who takes this inventory honestly and begins to honor what they find will discover that the revelation was already underway, that the signals had been present longer than they realized, and that the only thing that had been standing between them and the full emergence was the decision to stop suppressing what was always designed to be revealed. Receiving revealed power without the right posture is like receiving water in a sieve. It passes through you without staying, produces a momentary experience of something significant without leaving behind the lasting transformation that the significance was designed to produce. The posture that sustains revealed power is not constructed from confidence or from the feeling of readiness or from the accumulated validation of people who finally recognize what you carry. It is constructed from three specific elements that must be present simultaneously for the revelation to land in a way that produces lasting fruit rather than passing through as a brief, impressive, ultimately unsustainable experience. The first is humility about the source, the settled operational understanding that what is being revealed is not yours in the sense of originating in you, that you are the vessel through which it moves rather than the generator from which it comes, and that this distinction matters practically because it changes your relationship with both the power and the outcome it produces. The second is responsibility about the use, the recognition that what has been entrusted to you comes with an accountability for how it is deployed, that power without stewardship produces corruption rather than impact, and that the chosen one who receives genuine power without genuine responsibility will find that what they were given eventually becomes the source of their greatest difficulty rather than their greatest contribution. The third is courage to operate before certainty arrives, the willingness to act from the power that is being revealed before you have complete confirmation of the result, because faith that waits for certainty before acting is not faith but calculation, and calculation does not activate what faith was designed to release. When I understood that the power being revealed in me was not mine, that I was the channel and not the source, the vessel and not the origin, everything about how I related to it changed in ways that were both immediately practical and deeply liberating. The fear of losing it decreased dramatically because I understood that what I was afraid of losing was not something I had generated through my own effort and therefore could lose through my own failure. The temptation to use it for self-promotion decreased because I understood that using a channel for purposes other than what it was designed to carry creates blockage rather than flow. And the anxiety about whether it was sufficient for what was being asked of it decreased because I understood that the question of sufficiency applied to the source rather than to the vessel, and the source had never once been insufficient for anything it committed to doing. The chosen one who internalizes this distinction will find that operating in revealed power becomes qualitatively less exhausting than the effort-based approach that preceded it, because they are no longer trying to generate from themselves what was always designed to flow through them from somewhere else. And the difference between generating and channeling is the difference between depletion and sustainable operation in the fullest expression of what you carry. Operating in revealed power does not mean waiting until you feel completely ready, completely confident, and completely certain about the outcome before you take a single step. It means taking the step from the certainty of who sent you rather than from the certainty of what will happen when you arrive. Moses did not raise the staff over the Red Sea from a position of certainty about what the water was going to do. He raised it from a position of certainty about who had told him to raise it, and the certainty about the instruction was sufficient to produce the action that preceded the miracle. David did not walk toward Goliath from a position of certainty about the outcome of the encounter. He walked from a position of certainty about the God in whose name he was advancing, and that certainty was the thing that made the advance possible before the outcome was visible. The chosen one who waits for certainty about the result before operating in what is being revealed will wait indefinitely, because certainty about the result is not available before the action. It is available only after it, as the confirmation that comes to faith that moved before it could see the destination clearly. Start operating in what is being revealed now, in whatever form is currently available, in whatever context is currently accessible, because the power revealed grows in use rather than in storage. So here is the most direct and most practically useful thing I can say to the chosen one who is standing at the threshold of the revelation season and wondering what it actually looks like to step into it. Begin. Not when you feel fully ready. You will not feel fully ready, because readiness in the full sense is produced by the doing rather than preceding it. Not when you have the complete validation of everyone whose opinion matters to you. You will not have it, because the revelation of your power will make some people uncomfortable before it makes them convinced, and waiting for universal approval before operating in your calling is the most reliable way to never operate in it. Not when the conditions are perfectly aligned. They will not be, because perfect conditions are the story we tell ourselves to justify the delay that fear is actually producing. Begin with what is in your hand. Begin in the room you are currently in. Begin at the level of expression that is currently accessible, and trust that faithfulness at that level will open the next level, because that is how revealed power works. It expands in proportion to the faithfulness with which what has already been revealed is used, and it contracts in proportion to the consistency with which what has already been revealed is stored rather than expressed. Before Moses parted the Red Sea, he had to raise the staff. Before David killed Goliath, he had to pick up the stones and walk toward the giant. Before every great revelation of power in Scripture, there was an act of obedience that preceded the manifestation, a moment where someone moved before they had certainty, acted before they had confirmation, and stepped forward before the outcome was visible. God is asking that of you right now, not to wait until you feel sufficient, not to hold back until you have the validation of people who were never qualified to release you, not to keep apologizing for what he spent too long building inside you, but to begin operating in what is being revealed with whatever is currently in your hand, in whatever room you are currently in, trusting that the God who placed it inside you knew exactly what he was doing and has never once needed your permission to be faithful to what he promised about your life. Chosen one, what God placed inside you was never meant to stay hidden, and the season of containment is over. Every rejection that tried to define your ceiling, every voice that called your power a problem, every year that felt like obscurity was forming the version of you that is now ready to be fully revealed. Close your eyes and say it out loud. God, I will no longer hide what you placed inside me. I received the revelation of my real power today. Use me, all of me. Amen. If this reached you today, it wasn't by accident. Drop a like. It helps this word find another chosen one who needs to stop hiding and start walking in the power God placed inside them. Subscribe and turn on the bell. What's coming next is for those ready to be fully revealed, fully used, and fully positioned for everything God has prepared. One word. Tell me what you felt. I read every single one.